that can be a challenge is actually agreeing on what your customer strategy is first. That's why it's important that it comes from the top of the organization and it forms part of your vision on what you want your business to feel and look like for your customers. Do you want to be?
Hello, my name is Peter Lavers and welcome to this edition of the Customer Centricity Corner, brought to you by Attuned Limited. Our purpose as a company is to build customer-centric culture, which is based on trust. And that's all to establish mutual, sustainable and beneficial and profitable B2B relationships. In this series, I'm discussing customer centricity in the business-to-business sector. And our subject today is customer strategy, which of course should be setting out what that means in your company and how it will be achieved and measured. I'm delighted to introduce James Leese, who up until recently was Chief Customer Officer at Cox Automotive. James has many years of experience championing customer experience in a very competitive and numbers-driven sector. James, welcome. I'm still surprised to come across lots of B2B companies that don't actually have a customer strategy. They're still working on the 4 Ps. What's your perspective on this, and why should a company have a customer strategy, and what do you think are the key components that a strategy should cover?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Hello, Peter. Thank you for this opportunity and joining you on your Customer Centricity Corner. So good to be here. Yes, I mean, very valid point that, it still amazes me today that some businesses, when you ask them what's their customer strategy, they'll sit there and scratch their head and it will go down to whatever their sales strategy tends to be, or even a product strategy. You're quite right. Lots of businesses still work through the 4 Ps, which let's not fool ourselves. Those 4 Ps are still hugely important. You've got to have a product. You need to understand your pricing point, how you're going to sell it, your promotion, your place. All of those things are important. And it's interesting. It's only last week I was helping my son with his homework at school, and he's doing business studies, and the business studies talked about the 4 Ps and select an organization, go through those 4 Ps, and nowhere again did it mention customer. Customer doesn't appear in there. So customer strategy is hugely important for any organization. And I think the experience that I picked up over my years of working in this space was that actually when you sit down and talk to a business and sit there and try and work through your customer strategy, especially if you're part of a large organization, every part of the business will have a different view on what their customer strategy is, whether that's customer experience, customer service, let's fix the problems, or it's got to be cheap, they want it quick. I mean, lots of variants of that. And the successful companies are the ones that have a strategy that is driven from the top and is very clearly articulated as a vision of what they want that to feel and look like for their customers. And then that forms the central part of all of those other plans and strategies that sit across an organization, whether that's pricing, product, promotion, marketing, however it may fit. So having a customer strategy is hugely important. I think one of the things that can be a challenge is actually agreeing on what your customer strategy is first. That's why it's important that it comes from the top of the organization and it forms part of your vision on what you want your business to feel and look like for your customers. Do you want to be the best product in town? Do you want to be the cheapest? Are you the quickest? Is it the best customer experience you're looking for? And understanding where your place is in that market and where you can basically pick up a benefit and an opportunity to be better than your competitors in whatever that space may be. As you referenced earlier, working with Cox Automotive, very competitive B2B marketplace, a business made up of lots of individual businesses as part of a group, all slightly different products and solutions. So actually trying to define your customer strategy can be a real challenge when it comes to that, because every product and solution is slightly different than the other one. But we sat and when we looked at it, it was about actually ease of use. How do whatever we do across the organization make it for our customers to use us and make it as easy as possible for them to use whatever product or service or solution that is. Now, it doesn't mean to say that becomes everything that you talk about with your customers, but it becomes that central part that you always come back to whenever you deliver a new product or solution or pricing methodology. Are we, in what we're doing, does it make it simple for our customers? because a lot of the times you'd find that when you want to make a change, what you think is the right thing to do, it tends to be for your business and not with the customer in mind, which actually ironically tends to make things more difficult for your customer in a lot of ways. You'll change something you do internally around your pricing mechanism or the way you invoice, and that may make things much easier for you as a business because you're looking at reducing your costs and improving efficiencies, but actually it makes it harder for the customers. So in the short term, you may see a benefit, but in the long term, the customers will start saying this is becoming really difficult for me and may go off and choose another supplier. So that's why customer strategy and having an aligned customer strategy is hugely important. But the challenges that come with that, especially part of a large organization, is everyone adhering to that. And then how do you show that your customer strategy is the right one, and how do you measure against it? Because that's another big challenge organizations will have, is how do you measure the effectiveness of your customer strategy? Everything will tend around the board table goes back to P&Ls, EBITDA, which obviously is a huge important measure that we all have to be focused on. But actually, how do you measure your customer satisfaction and the things you does that please your customers? Does it frustrate them? So having measures in place to give you those alerts and touch points is hugely important as well.
Brilliant. That's so helpful. It's so much that you've just kind of touched upon there. Some of the things you said as kind of challenges. Do you think that there are key obstacles that our watchers and listeners will need to be aware of? Are there any things that are a bit more than a challenge, actually obstacles that need overcoming in championing customer centricity and customer strategy?
Yeah, alignment at the board table or wherever your senior management table is hugely important. One of the areas that I probably spent more time trying to work on than any other area was alignment with my colleagues across the board table. They have their own roles to play in an organization, whether that is MDs of a role, and again, very focused on their EBITDA and profitability, resource levels. But actually, how did I try and bring that customer strategy to life to show how it's going to support their business and benefit their business? So for me, I think that one of the toughest obstacles is just that, getting that consistency around the table as a senior management team or a board, that this customer strategy is going to help everyone and everyone's got a part to play in it. Otherwise, you could quite easily find yourself pulling in different directions. Going back to that point about, what you'll make decisions based upon. So if I'm an MD of a business, let's say, and I have pressures on P&L, one of my first points of going to probably review is going to be, how do I reduce my costs or improve efficiencies? And going back to that point about, we'll make decisions sometimes without thinking about the impact on the customer. So it was not saying that we don't make these decisions, because of course they're important business decisions you have to make, but actually let's put the customer at the center of that when we make that decision. And we may still make exactly the same decision, but we may think of just packaging it up differently, talking about it, different terminology, or whatever else it may be, or some tweaks and changes to it, that then the customer will understand why we're making those changes, rather than in a lot of instances you see businesses just do something and then tell their customers what they've done. But actually, what's the message? How can you wrap that up differently to a customer so they see benefit rather than just extra cost or complexity?
Yeah. Thank you so much, James. These are short sessions, and you've given us loads to think about there. Just a couple of things that kind of popped out to me as you were speaking. Obviously, that alignment at board level and at the people who get it, and in a way, that's what we're trying to do a little bit with this Customer Centricity Corner, to help senior leaders actually get what this is about, that actually maybe there is a different lens. And exactly as you said, it's not like a replacement lens, but there's a lens that we need to look through, which is the customer experience and customer profitability lenses. And obviously that's what the strategy should be delivering in organizations. And that whole point about it being led from the top is absolutely vital, and I've seen that in lots of organizations. So thanks again for the input, James. That's the end of this session. Maybe we'll have another one. That would be brilliant if you have time in the future. Be lovely to pick up with you on dig deeper in some of those areas. But thank you everyone for listening. This is the Customer Centricity Corner. I'm Peter Lavers, and thank you again to James Leese for being our speaker today.
You're welcome.